God's peace and blessings be upon you all, and good evening. First, we say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of God, the most compassionate, most merciful. It's very nice to see such wonderful faces and numbers here this evening. And to come this evening for a topic that may seem to be theoretical and may seem to be an out-of-place topic. But nonetheless, I'm very happy to see all of you here today. If everyone had a look at the flyer, you'll see on the flyer the title of this particular presentation was "Making Faith Make Sense." And on the flyer there are some questions here, and among them are: do religious convictions have a place in the modern world? Does faith conflict with scientific observations? And can faith in the unseen be logical? And these are really deep questions. These are really heavy questions. These are questions that are probably not able to be adequately addressed in a very short presentation. But these essential questions which prompted what is known as the Age of Enlightenment, which was from 1685 to 1815. You know, the availability of new technologies and scientific methods of study had its effects on religion, and I think all of us have pretty much know that. And so in today's world, these questions are even more relevant because we live in a time when religion is increasingly associated with social conservatism, associated with ambitious preachers, it's associated with crime, it's associated with terrorism and things like that. And to be honest, it can be very tempting to simply say that faith, particularly faith in things which are unseen, it is very tempting to say that faith in the unseen makes absolutely no sense at all. It's very tempting to say that. And to all of this, I would say, in terms of faith, go back to basics. And what do we mean by go back to basics? By going back to basics, we mean to consider the world in which we live. There is a very beautiful passage from the Quran.
We can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. There is a very beautiful passage from the Quran which directly speaks to this subject. And it's really one of my favorite passages. It's a very powerful and very appropriate passage. And to appreciate the message of this passage, it's important to go through it a little slowly. And so the passage starts by saying this. It gives a definition of the term intelligent people. Like in other words, how does the Quran identify people who are intelligent? It says that those people are those who recall God standing, sitting down, laying down on their sides. So first thing is given there is God. God as being the object of their thoughts. Well, then what is God? Who is God? What is the identity of God? The intelligent people, again, according to the Quran, continuing with the verse, the intelligent people are serious. They don't act whimsically. The verse continues, and who are the intelligent people? They are those who contemplate about the contents of the heavens and the earth. They are those who contemplate about the contents of the heaven and the earth. In other words, they're thinking about God. They are thinking about the identity of God. Perhaps searching through different religions, looking at godly issues. It leads them to look at the universe. In other words, it's not a search that's confined to a particular book or confined to a particular tradition. It is looking at this entire universe, this entire creation. There's another verse of the Quran which says, "Indeed, the creation of the heavens and the earth is a bigger issue than the creation of mankind." So although we tend to be very self-centered, but we are but one creation in this vast universe. So there are others who are created by God in this universe, and this universe itself is fashioned by God. So, in other words, what the Quran invites us to do, and this is very important. This is extremely important. The Quran invites us to look at the big picture. And the big picture, and this might be a little controversial, but I have bodyguards in the audience. The big picture is not necessarily the question if we are here because of evolution, or we are here because of the story of creation as found in Genesis. That's not the big picture. The big picture is the fact that we're here. Not necessarily how we got here, but the big picture is that we are here. The big picture is the vastness of the universe, and the heavenly bodies in it, which really appear to us as dots. They appear as little tiny dots or lights in the sky. And so the Quran identifies the one who created this universe by the term al-haqq, A-L-H-A-Q-Q, al-haqq. And al-haqq, it means the ultimate reality. So, according to the Quran, God cannot be conceptualized or limited by human concepts or human speech. And this is one of the reasons that you noticed when you looked into the musalla, to the prayer room, that there are no images in there. There are no images. And this is why we avoid describing God in human terms or in physical terms. The Quran also says, this is also a very important teaching. It says, wherever you turn, you find the presence of God. Wherever you turn, you find the presence of God. So, the Quran goes on giving us its description, or its definition of intelligent people. It says that these people, that they seriously contemplate the universe, and they contemplate their own inner workings. And the Quran summarizes their conclusions by this expression: رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. That they say, our Lord, you have not created all of this without purpose. You haven't created all this for play or for vanity. So, everything has purpose, or functions in the plural. We may not always know what those functions are, but that doesn't negate its reality. And I see a few children in the audience. Does anyone here have pets, like a dog or a cat? No, all the adults seem to raise their hands, but none of the children. So this statement is more so directed towards the children, because the adults will certainly know this. Do you know that when your cat or your dog, when their droppings, that it acts as fertilizer for the soil? Did you know that? Didn't know that. You didn't know that. She knew that, so she said no. So, I mean, this is a small example, but an example of everything in the universe having function, even if we may not always recognize what that function is or what those functions are. So, for faith to make sense, it's good to look at things like that. A better example is the function of trees. Among the functions of trees is that trees renews air supply by absorbing carbon dioxide and producing oxygen. So these little small basic facts, are a good foundation for faith, at least according to the Quran. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلْقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ. So, for faith to make sense, consider your own body. So the Quran says, "سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ." You know, that God's evidence is shown in the universe, but also within our own bodies. And God is going to show us that. So for faith to make sense, consider your own body. The entire human body, to use modern terms, the entire human body is engineered from the top of our heads to the bottom of our feet. It is all engineered. Our bodies are built with features and functions, just as automobiles are built with features or functions. So, when we see the big picture, faith is actually not irrational. Faith is actually rational. The big picture understanding presents a firm foundation. So, do not limit faith to miracles, because a magician can do miracles. This is Las Vegas. A magician can do actions that we don't immediately recognize how that they were done. The late boxer Muhammad Ali, he used to do magic tricks. You know, he'd take a coin and other people's air and stuff like that. But what he would do was, he would explain to the person how he did it. So that's what he would do. He would explain to the person how he did it. But again, a magician can do actions, and we see it as something miraculous or something great. We just simply don't know how he did it. So we should not limit our faith to magic tricks. Actually, let me rephrase that. Don't have faith in magic tricks at all. Because even real and authentic miracles can still be disputed and still be explained away in one sense or another. So I want to share a religious teaching that the one who created all this, whom the Quran calls al-haqq, who calls the ultimate reality, the one who has created all this has not only created all this, but this ultimate reality has sent forth aid, assistance to mankind. And that aid comes in the form not only of our minds, the ability to think and the ability to reason, but has also come in the form of human teachers and in the form of scriptures. And often these scriptures have guidelines on how humans should live. And these guidelines are broad enough to work in any condition. Now, I know that this is perhaps a statement, what I have just said is a statement that you would hear in a church or hear in a synagogue and any religious place. So in those regards, Islam is the same, at least in this respect. Yet Islam is woefully misrepresented in today's world. And I'm not going to sit and cry about that. You didn't come here to watch me cry. Rather than crying about that or lamenting about that, I would like for all of you, particularly those who have never read the Quran or who don't already have a Quran, I want you to take from us a Quran. We have some Qurans back there on that shelf. You'll notice that in this talk that most of this talk has been centered on the Quran. And the reason for that is because the Quran asks us to look at the big picture. And so at the very least, it deserves to be read. It deserves for its contents to be contemplated upon, to be useful to its readers, regardless of their background. It deserves to at least be consulted in terms of helping us in seeing the big picture. That's the religious side, but there's also a secular or a practical side. And the practical side is that it would help for our neighbors to be able to better understand Muslims. Because for Muslims, the Quran is the number one. The Quran is the most important source. It's really the most important book in the life of a Muslim. More so than any other source, the Quran is the most important book. And the Quran has guidelines, just as other scriptures do. And yes, it tells us about God, it tells us about prophets, it tells us about angels, it tells us about many things. But it doesn't just tell us about those religious aspects, and it doesn't just point us to the heavens. It tells us about things that we are facing about or asking about and trying to deal with on a daily basis, all of us in this room. It talks to us about racism. It talks to us about racism. It talks to us about sexism. It talks to us about poverty, about how to lift ourselves out of poverty, and about how to help our brothers and sisters who are in poverty. It tells us about destructive behavior. And most importantly, it points us towards the foundations for proper thinking. And having proper thinking translates into becoming human beings who are truly inspired by faith to overcome all adversity. And not by looking for some figure to come down from the sky to save us, but to be able to do it ourselves, to create our own miracles, to prosper here in this life, and to have a comfortable existence in the life to come. I want to conclude with this particular story, which is often narrated. The story is often narrated by our Christian brothers and sisters. And the story is this. It's not a scriptural story, but it's a very nice story. The story is that there was once a man who drowned, and he's in the presence of God, and he tells God, "Why didn't you save me from drowning?" And so God says, "What are you talking about? I sent you a plane, I sent you a boat, I sent you such and such people, and you kept saying, I'm waiting for God." Well, God was sending it to you already. So faith in God is inherently rational, I would argue. And if we have faith in God, then it gives us a foundation for proper thinking to be prosperous, have a real prosperity in this life. And that, of course, from the believer's perspective, translates into a better future in the life to come. I don't want to make any more delays because the food is smelling good. So I will stop now and... Okay, so we're allowed to take questions or comments. Any questions or comments? Okay, so yes?
Me?
You have a question?
Yeah.
Please.
My kids always ask me, how are you going to prove to me that this Quran is sent from Allah? So I can't find the good words to kids, what to say to them. So maybe now through you could say something.
I think your kids are now embarrassed.
Say something to these kids who they've seen a lot of different things now. They are with this society that they say different things. So they like, how can you prove it to us? We're right.
Okay, the Quran is, the Quran is 114 chapters, and it talks about a lot of issues. But I would say two things. First of all, look at the Quran as being the thing which helps you to connect to God. So, for example, Surah Al-Fatiha. Everyone here knows Surah Al-Fatiha? You know the meaning of Surah Al-Fatiha?
Kind of, have enough.
Kind of? Okay, so that might take some time to explain. Maybe we'll talk about that in private. But the point here is, number one, look at Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha is there to really help us to connect to God. All right? And the second thing is, look at the broad teachings in the Quran. All right? The broad teachings of the Quran are really something that can work in your own life. So the Quran says that you should pray for your parents. Right? That you are to pray for your parents. And the way that it talks to you is that you're praying for your parents using the same words that the same you understand these words? Okay. My Lord, have mercy on my parents because they because they nourished me as I was a child. So what I'm saying is, does your mother exist?
Yes.
Does your father exist?
Yes.
Do they work and provide for you?
Yes.
They brought you here this evening?
Mm-hmm.
And they're delaying you from getting your food, right? Okay, just as they exist, okay, just as they exist, and they're providing for you, God is providing for us. All right, and He's providing to us through your parents, right? And your parents are not going to intentionally lead you in a bad direction. And your parents are nourishing you partly because of the Quran. I know this is a long question, this is a long issue, but the point here is that the Quran is affecting your parents to do for you, all right? To love you. And this is ultimately because the Quran is from the one who loves you. I know this is a very long answer, but maybe we should talk better more in private because I know these things are difficult. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Can I touch sister's question a little bit, and then
Emphasis on a little bit.
Yeah, first of all, if we put that kind of challenge for the Quran, how do we know it is from God? That challenge can go for any scripture. But now we are saying Quran has to, or any book coming from God Almighty as a revelation, has to pass the test of time. Quran has predicted the Ghalibah of Rome. Rome will overcome the Persia, and it was. And then 1400 years ago, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about the skeleton and how the child has been made in Surah Al-Mu'minun, then it is very easy to understand. We didn't have any medical step of any what we have today, that we realize that we can come up with all these kinds of knowledge. So I'm coming to the question now, why do we have to believe once God Almighty is all merciful and compassionate? What is the belief for?
Okay, so there are two things I want to mention. The first one is that Masha Sabor is having a Black History Month program, family night. It'll be 2 nights, February 1st at 6 o'clock and February 28th at 6 o'clock. And the title of it is Illuminating the Shadows, Polishing the Obscure Jewels of Black History. So for anyone who has interested in attending these family nights, please contact Imam Mustafa or Imam Fatin, who is here somewhere, who's there trying to hide. The second thing is that Congressman Stephen Horsford, he is on his way, so he should be here in the next 10 minutes or so. If anyone cares to meet with him. Yes, and if anyone wants any more tours, we've done some tours before we started. If anyone wants any more tours, let us know. And last but not least, I know that you're waiting for food, right? That's what you're really waiting for, right? So if there are no more questions or comments, I will stop and we can eat some of the food before it gets cold. Thank you.